about your career or your journey as an entrepreneur, I have to tell you that what you each just did, you just made a major financial investment in the person you shared with. Most people don't recognize that that is in fact the tools that I'm talking about, the secret tools that often people don't acknowledge. That is a powerful economic tool, and that is in fact mentoring. We just heard the whole conversation about the future of the global future in terms of AI, conversation about the value of technology, and technology has improved so much and continues to improve, and also your personal and professional branding. But along that way, that I will tell you that none of those tools, none of the technology, none of the future is going to be what we think it's going to be without recognizing the need to invest in someone else. And that investment, in fact, has a dollar value. And oftentimes when I have conversations with people about mentoring, they think of it as kind of soft. But I want to share with you just briefly why it's not soft. That mentoring actually ensures the continuity of expertise and experience and all that great talent that you just finished sharing with your colleague. Just think, if that doesn't get passed on, if somebody doesn't get mentored by you, where does that talent go when you leave? Unfortunately, we all have to leave here, okay? But it also promotes cross-generational, particularly in today's multi-generational workplaces. I don't think any of us work anywhere anymore without multiple generations inside of our place of employment, or even in our place of business in terms of we are the business owner. Then also, clearly, where I sit with you today, we're talking about multiple cultures. We're talking about the need for that kind of international expansion, international way in looking at the world. We're now well into, despite all the challenges, a global economy. And if we want to see that continue, it really is about this tool as an economic investment tool. But I'm going to talk a little bit more to make the point about mentoring is not a soft skill, it's an economic tool. It really is about talent and retention. Employees with mentors are 5 times more likely to be promoted. 72% more likely to stay at your company. Companies with strong mentoring cultures report 18% higher profitability. Excuse me, your bottom line? 18% higher profitability. And business and growth. The U.S. Small Business Administration reports that mentoring businesses have a 70% survival rate. We all know what the survival rate is for small businesses. I happen to be one and I'm surviving, but that's it, surviving. But the reality of that is, we're talking about a 70% survival rate over 5 years, compared to only 30% survival rate those without mentoring. Mentoring businesses report 12% annual employment growth versus 4% for non-mentoring firms. Now let's talk about really what matters to you in terms of revenue and ROI. In the UK, 70% of mentored businesses experience a 20% increase in revenue. In France, companies in BPI France Accelerator Program grew 3 times faster in revenue than the average businesses. Programs like Big Brothers and Big Sisters show a return of $18 to $23 for every dollar invested in mentorship. A Deloitte study showed that 78% of millennials believe mentorship leads to workplace innovation and attitude linked to 15% faster revenue growth in innovation-driven companies. So clearly, I am not having a conversation with you about charity. I am not having a conversation with you about soft. I'm having a conversation about business and about economic advancement. And so I'm going to end with this and turn to my colleague to share much more concretely how I believe, and having been asked to participate in the launch of this program, how I believe the Women's in Leadership program, Women in the Chamber, actually is on the cutting edge of a major economic investment that will benefit this region, will benefit the Chamber's members. And so if you're not a member, you need to become a member. And so let me just also say that. But this very briefly in terms of turning it over right here, just there's a difference between mentoring in the United States versus for France, that approximately 90% of Fortune 500 companies operate formal mentoring programs in the United States. But they operate traditional one-on-one relationship, peer relationship mentoring, and bridging technology. In France, mentoring historically has been more discreet and more often occurred within elite educational institutions and professional circles. Trust and intellectual rigor is very emphasized. Access to mentorship before was limited. However, I want to say for both cultures, what the literature tells us is that we really do need a blend of both France and America in terms of our culture and mentoring, and that will increase our economic outcomes. So I urge you to consider mentoring not as something soft, but something almost even more important than AI. This is about your bottom line, return on investment. Right here.
Thank you very much, Diana. So we are towards the end of the afternoon. It's been a really great opportunity for me, and I love the exercise that you have us engage in. Clearly, there's a need for us to share and to expand. Thank you very much. I was just going to ask for that. So please, if you have questions, begin to queue them up on the QR code, and we'll answer them, and I imagine Denise will share them. So the Women in Leadership Committee, for which I'm a co-chair, and Lydia Leffler is our chair, we have been working very astutely on a mentorship program. And I love the way you framed it, Diane, because yes, we do want to socialize, we don't want to meet, but we do need, very importantly, to increase our revenues and our businesses and learn from each other. How does one do that, and how can the Women in Leadership help you in that stead? A few weeks ago, we actually launched our program, and we have a two-tier process. The first is understanding the field and the issues as they present themselves. We heard earlier that we are in changing times, and in those changing times, we have to do things that we haven't done before, understand the other side, if you will, and engage in a process to move forward and to be productive in this time. And so the first part is that we have established a series of conversations to which Ms. Bell McCoy was a party to, the first one. We'll have some successive discussions, and we invite you to look out for those. And in those discussions, what we've termed them as fireside chat. And those opportunities are for you to be able to discuss with notables, women and men, because mentorship, we heard earlier, men need to be engaged in this game, if you will, and in this situation. Understanding what are the best practices, what are the to-dos and not-dos, what worked before and what worked now. What are the different frames of mentorship? Who is a mentor, who isn't a mentor? One of the things that came out from our first session I want to share is the issue of trust and the value of trusting relationships. Also, I would like to share also the fact that mentors, it's a mutually beneficial relationship, right? It's not always a top-down. Yes, the person may have what you are looking for, but you also. The issue of intergenerational information transfer. AI is blowing us all away. My 14-year-old is on it. He's not on games or anything, he's in AI. And the discussions we had today blew my mind. What do we need to learn? How do we get in front of it? So look out for more of those discussions, more blog posts. If you're not on our LinkedIn page, please look at that, which is the French American Chamber. And also some YouTube conversations we're going to be having. You remember Laurent was here earlier, and he talked about the issues of chaos, and we're going to interview him and talk to him about how that relates. Finally, which is where I will leave, we won't put that slide up, but at the end of the questions, there is a survey that we have put together. We have a pilot project that's coming where we will have 5 people selected to be, so a quarter of 10, 5 mentors and 5 mentees, people who are interested in helping us test out this program. Is what we're thinking make sense? Is it relevant? So I would ask you, if you look out for that QR code, which will come after our questions, if you could fill that out and be engaged with us, enjoy the chamber, see all the different things we have, but I really encourage you to participate with us in this mentorship program. I should add finally that there is a video recording that we did of the conversation more in depth than that Diane and I had, and that's on YouTube, and that link can be shared with you. Denise, I'm going to ask if we have any questions for myself or Diane, and Please don't embarrass me, send in some questions.
Yes.
But we'll be fine. Thank you, sir.
Yes. How can structured and informal mentoring be used to inspire women to take on leadership opportunities at their institution or in their communities?
So the question is, how can mentorship programs be structured to have women access those programs? You say that?
How can it be used to inspire women to take on leadership opportunities?
Yeah. I think we talked about the fact that there are many relationships that are mentor relationships that are not structured, right? You have somebody who takes a liking to you, and so you have this sort of back and forth. There's not a set time to meet, there are not set goals and objectives. I contend from some of what we have read in our conversations is that a structured program, if you have the opportunity to be a part of one, is one you should engage in. The structure allows regularity, systems, exactly what structure means, boundaries. You know that you probably will have a good fit with your mentor if you have gone through a structured program. Women and men need to know where they are, who they're talking to, what are the benefits of said relationship. So that's one of the benefits of a structured program. I think also there has to be on and off ramps. As much as it's important to engage, if a relationship is not working out, there should be set guidelines as to say, this does not work. A relationship also should be, I mentioned mutually beneficial, but respectful. And that there is an exchange, there is something tangible that can go back and forth. For women and the structure and men, I think those are some of the guidelines that would help.
I want to just add to that I also will say to women that the opportunity to identify a potential mentor, maybe not framed that way initially, is that you do have the ability to do that yourselves. Do not also, I think the formal mentoring program, a structured mentoring program is important to get the total return on investment, but I will tell anyone, any day, that anyone in a leadership position, someone that has a set of skills that you admire, that people who have those set of skills or in leadership positions, and anyone in the room who's a leader or head of, please dispute me if I'm wrong, but I don't know anyone who doesn't like talking about themselves. Okay? And so reaching out to ask that someone that you just want a few minutes with them. If you're comfortable enough asking for an information, just a few minutes for an informational conversation. It's not considered a formal mentoring, but just a conversation. That is your first opportunity as a woman, and I would say also as a woman, your commitment to yourself.
Thank you. Another question?
Yeah, it is a great one. When is the right time to seek mentorship? Is there such a thing as too early?
I do not believe there's such a thing as too early. I was very, very early in my career where I reached out in terms of, I knew what I didn't know, although there were times I thought I knew everything. Okay, I'm telling the truth. But there were times I didn't know. And I think it's important even early in your career because where you want to go, you may not know. You may not be clear yet about the pathway. Having those mentoring opportunities helps provide that clarity. So I think you want to start early, you may stop, you may go back for the next level up, for the next level over. You're going to become an entrepreneur. That's a different mentor you want. So I think it should be used like any other tools in your life, is using it to guide you in terms of your ultimate outcomes in your goal that you want to achieve.
Thank you. We'll do another question.
We really had some great questions here. I'm going to have to make a choice at some point, but what's a great and polite way to ask someone to be your mentor once you've secured the chat?
I'm not going to let Diane answer this one. I'm not. And if she does, I'm going to hit her no. You have to have a personality. Well, there's different ways. There are many who are not as outgoing, perhaps, as others. I would suggest an email. I would suggest within that email, relationships are a two-way street. There has to be something for the other person. Yes, there's the altruistic nature, and that is a dynamic. But I think an email, one, I'll be very concrete, an email, identifying who you are, identifying that you've researched and there's something for that other person in terms of their skill set and how that might help. and what you might also engage in that transaction. So those are my I'll let her, she's gonna answer.
I'm going to answer, but I'm not going to do my usual answer is to do it, but that's not. I would also say use your peers. Use your existing relationships among your peers to have that conversation with them. Because somebody within your peer group may actually have done it or may have the same anxiety as you. So please don't be concerned or frightened about using your peers, about somebody knowing what you don't know. That is the only way we're all stepping forward is to acknowledge what we don't know.
Thank you. Denise?
Yeah, like I said, good questions. As a coach, I've seen the benefits of men being coached by women. Do you notice any resistance from men to be mentored by women?
I don't know the answer to that. I'll leave it to my senior.
I do know that exists across any gender, exists across race, across culture. That just exists. But I will tell you, I say this not be careful, but I consider myself a white male whisperer. That is to say that men have a sense of vulnerability that they don't want to share. And having someone be their mentor can be uncomfortable if it's a woman, although I encourage men to seek men as mentors so that they get a level of comfort. But once they've had that first level of comfort, I'm always available to be their coach, and I coach a number of young men right now. And that it is always by his point about relationships, it's about trust, it's about respect, but it's about acknowledging that I know that I'm talking to someone's talking to me, who's asking for a particular goal for something they want to achieve, and I'm going to respect that.
I just want to add one quickly. Please note our program is open to men, and we want it both ways.
Diane, as a black woman, I can relate.
Okay. Today is silly.
As a mentor, if you see potential in a mentee, how do you encourage them to take on leadership roles without overwhelming them or scaring them off?
I will answer. I'll start with that because I think I scare people. I think I do. I don't mean to, but the passion that some people have is an ability to see you not where you are, not in a diminutive way, but really in a forward-thinking, let's move this energy, let's move this world along, and you have it, and I see it. So one of the things I've tried to do is not do that, and at the same time is to actually say, look, this might be scary, but guess what, my dear, you might have it. You might have it to carry us along. So that would be my contribution.
I would add to that, I currently have a young female leader that I'm coaching, and she's petrified. She's very, very talented, and by his point, she doesn't even see what her gifts are. And so rather than doing my usual Diane self, what I actually am doing with her is we're planning a series of outings together to network events. We will have a conversation about that event a week before with some homework she has to do for that. But then we'll go together and then actually giving her some things she's going to ask look for during that time. So I will be there with her, but allow her to go through the journey, and then we'll immediately have time afterwards to talk about what she felt, talk about what she saw. So I've learned a new technique that's new, but I recognize and respect everyone's different. And like right here, we both can see gifts and other people when they don't see it themselves. But I want to be respectful where she is.
I just want to add here, in a structured program, there are terms. Just like in your business, there are terms. I think if you're in a mentor relationship, it's important to set out terms. And one of those terms is lovely, that you would be able to attend events with the person, but I might push you, that's one of the things. You might be afraid, that's one of the things. So there's this level of expectation that these things might be coming down the pike, and so when we see them, we wouldn't be afraid of them. So setting out those intentions, those expectations, as you would do in your business contracts.
There are bad mentors. Do you believe mentor training should be part of a formal program?
Yes. I think that, I don't want to be there's just too much going on in this world, okay? And I think I like boundaries, I like structure, I like training. On ramps, off ramps, terms of engagement, terms of termination, those are part of it. Partnership agreements, that's part of it. So I think there are, is it good intentions, bad outputs? I'm sure there's a nicer way to put it. You can have the best of intentions, but you can do harm. And so that is also part of the terms. So in those terms, it say, look, if this is not going the way you intended to go out, this is the flag you can flag. You can wave power, and then you can say, this is where I get off.
Absolutely. Not everyone is a good mentor. Not everyone can be a mentor for someone else. Absolutely. You must have the structure and the ability to lay that out so you know that going in. How do I come out?
All right, 2 more questions. Diane, you presented some great stats on businesses that get mentored. What does business mentorship look like? How is it different than individual mentorship?
Well, I think what he just described in terms of the program that the Women Leadership are setting up is similar to what a corporation was set up. It's very defined, although, like I helped John Hopkins develop a mentoring program for one of the departments. It was very specific in terms of the goal that they had for that department. That department didn't have over something ridiculous like 45 years, had never had a woman in leadership, had never had a person of color in leadership. And they really needed an opportunity to lay out what were going to be the goals, the objectives of that. But it had to involve those very same people I was relying upon to be a part of that, with the same people who hadn't provided opportunity. So it meant that we had to lay out a series of things and go through a series of where they were at that time, back to the other presentation earlier in terms of the data about the conscious versus unconscious system 1, system 2, in terms of where they were. And then helping them guide along the lines of what was necessary to have someone achieve a supervisory position, and then what did they have to expect? Who do they think had the skill set and who didn't have the temperament, particularly in that, and then being very concrete. What would happen at the end of this period of time? It wasn't a guarantee that they would be promoted. That was not what was guaranteed, but it was very focused about what they sought to achieve in terms of the goals for this division. And Hopkins is very committed to it, of changing the diversity, both in terms of race, age, and gender in that department. So it is very structured.
Thank you. So last question for each of you. From Ellen, she's asking, who were your mentors and how did they influence you? That's our last question.
Wow, I've had so many different mentors because some I've identified early in my career. There's one I always laugh about is the head of a foundation in Baltimore right now, who, when I went that direction in my career, and I went up to him and I said, you're going to be my mentor. He says, no, I'm not. Oh, yes, you are. We're very good friends. He became a mentor. So it has been situational along the way of my career. It's been, it's interesting, I would say 80% of my mentors have been men. But that is because of where I've chosen to travel in my career in terms of those organizations of leadership were men. And I was determined that was not going to hold me back. And so that I sought them out, or I made myself sure that I was available in terms of that. So that's how I went after my mentors.
I love the way you said that your mentors, choice of mentors has changed and evolved over time. And so I imagine that it's a continuum. You would go up and down depending on the time. And if I went and looked at myself up and down, a mentor of mine would be Carol Thompson. She worked at the Annie E. Casey Foundation. I actually went to work at the Casey Foundation after one of my iterations of work, and I went in as an intern. And she looked at my resume, she goes, "You're not gonna stay here." And I said, "Oh yes, 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 I'm leaving that career that I was doing." And I worked as an intern. It was really low paid. But I had made money, so I was okay. I wanted to try something else. And when I was finished with that program, that internship, I was offered a very lucrative contract. So I went from here, there. And so many of the things she's taught me stays with me. I mean, so many wonderful things. So that was at one period of time in my life, and I was able to access that when I was in a career change, like many of us are at this point in terms of the region and so forth. So look for those opportunities.
I didn't hear my name being mentioned as one of your mentors.
Yes, you did. At different times. At different times. So what you see above you is our QR code. And this is generated by the committee that I am on, and my co-lead, who's not here, Denisha. And if you please would just scan the QR code. If you need help doing that, we have people who can help you. And what I would like you to do for us, for our information to grow, is to please go through the checklist, identify if you are able to or interested in being whatever. You'll see the set of questions there. Please welcome your engagement. There's also a table, the law firm that I work at, the Law Office of Edward Newell, we have one of our sign-in sheets if you would like more information about the Women in Leadership program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Diane. I'm really glad we finished with that. I think it was a great way to finish, and you mentioned that the room was thinning, but it was not thinning when you were looking. I think everybody is still there. So I think it was a great way to end. Last year we finished at 5 p.m. and I said never again. But it's 3:30, so.